If elected to a second term, former U.S. President Donald Trump has promised to be a dictator, but, quote, only on day one. Whether or not that remark was tongue in cheek, Trump does have a history of anti democratic rhetoric, from refusing to accept the results of the 2020 U.S. presidential election to encouraging his supporters to storm the Capitol on January 6, 2021, to stop the certification of President Joe Biden's victory. Trump's election victory in 2016 also gave rise to other leaders with authoritarian pretensions, while Trump himself has expressed admiration for the likes of Vladimir Putin of Russia and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Now, a new book looks back at the first age of dictatorship during the first half of the 20th century and the lessons we can draw from it. Here to talk about Shadows of Tyranny, Defending Democracy in an Age of Dictatorship, is journalist and author Ken McGoogan. Welcome.
Well, thanks very much, John.
Easy question to start us off, Ken. What made you write the book? Why now?
Well, it's like you're out walking the dog at 4 a.m. It's dark, and you look over, and there at the edge of town, where there's a munitions factory, you see a blaze in the front office. And you realize, well, wait a minute, if that blaze, people are fighting it, but if that blaze spreads, that whole munitions factory is going to go up and wipe out your town. So that was the metaphorical experience that made me feel compelled to say what I was seeing.
Now, history doesn't repeat, but it does often rhyme, as the old saying goes, an old saying that you quote in the book. How much of a role did history rhyming have to play in the writing of this book?
Tremendous. I mean, that is the governing metaphor, and so you hit it right on the head, John. Yeah, because I've been writing history of one kind and another for some years now. This is book number 17. Not all of them have been historical, but a lot of them have that dimension, and so that's how naturally I approach even contemporary events. And when I began. So the question was, well, when I looked at Trump, I said, well, what happened the last time a powerful nation elected a fascist demagogue? And that took me into centrally, I suppose, the story of the rise of Adolf Hitler and what then ensued.
Now, the book looks at the first age of dictatorship through a Canadian lens. One of the more interesting examples looks at how late Canada, and Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King in particular, was in realizing what a threat Adolf Hitler was to Western democracy. And reading this back, I wonder how he could have been so blind to that. And as you point out, how he saw Hitler as a Joan of Arc figure.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Well, the Toronto Star actually published, that chapter as an excerpt just the other day. Wow, it's really mind-blowing. William Lyon Mackenzie King was prime minister, for a great long period. And through the 1930s, while some Canadians were pointing out, wait a minute, things are really dangerous here. For example, Lord Beaverbrook and the great journalist Matthew Halton, they're saying, oh, okay, look, Hitler is not normal. Things are getting out of hand. But Mackenzie King, no, he was all good. He went to visit Hitler as late as 1937. So he was on side with Neville Chamberlain, the British Prime Minister waving his piece of paper, peace in our time, all's going to be good. And Mackenzie King actually went over, he was in Britain, and then he went over he was invited to Germany. He seemed so sympathetic, and he was, right? Oh, things are going to be okay. Churchill, meanwhile, is saying, okay, Germany is rearming to mount a major onslaught. Neville Chamberlain, no. And Mackenzie King, no, it's all going to be okay. He goes to meet Hitler, sits down with him, has a great long talk. And it goes back to his weird obsession with his with his mother, his weird spiritual obsession, and he perceived the same thing in Hitler, who completely and utterly buffaloed him as to his intentions, so that when Hitler, even later in 1938, he's saying, oh no, it's maybe we can't be really good friends with them, but we don't have to make trouble like Churchill's going to make. And then of course Hitler starts rolling out his real agenda. So yeah, all of that terrified me because I saw how it happened. I mean, Hitler didn't come out a full-blown raging anti-Semite and a murderous thug, essentially. No, not initially. I mean, he raved a little bit and he ranted, but when he failed a coup early in Munich, that was a failed attempt to overthrow the government. He ended up in jail, so he was a felon, but he used that. That became a platform for him. And then he thought, okay, I have to do this democratically. And, these are the lessons that, here's where you see history rhyming. The same things emerging. I mean, it's incontrovertible as far as I can see.
Well, now that kind of leads me to my next question in terms of the lessons that we can draw from that episode. Have we to this point underestimated Donald Trump the way some underestimated Hitler?
No question about it. People are still saying, well, here in Canada, the worst thing that's going to happen, he's going to mess with the trade agreement maybe, and he might withdraw from NATO, and none of that's going to be good. But people are still seeing him as a normal politician and president. Not everybody by any means. Many brilliant Americans have been sounding the alarm. From Anne Applebaum to Ruth Van Giet and Timothy Snyder, they're all saying, okay, look out, this is bad. So it's not, but a lot of Canadians aren't really tuning in to that. So it's to me, it's quite worrisome, which is why I felt compelled to write the book.
Now, much of the story centers around the Spanish Civil War, as many widely regard as a dress rehearsal for World War II. Do you see something of a parallel between the Spanish Civil War and, say, the wars in Ukraine and in Gaza in terms of foreshadowing a wider conflict?
That's really interesting. I can see that you actually read the book, John, which I appreciate. Yeah, that there may well be, that dress rehearsal is kind of an ominous signal, and the current wars in Ukraine and Gaza certainly set the same kind of tone. Well, I'd go even farther than that in terms of parallels. When I wrote the book, I added a final chapter, an epilogue, if you will, titled, "Where is Our Churchill?" I was, and then after that, saw that debate between Trump and Biden, and saw, an old man kicked to the curb and then thrashed. And so I was feeling really ill. I mean, the resistance plays a big part in the book, as I'm sure you know. Who was going to lead our resistance? Because it was Churchill who stepped forward, and he became prime minister at the last minute. I mean, people talk about how little time there is between now and the American election. There's all kinds of time. Hitler, Churchill was facing an almost instantaneous invasion. So yeah, there's all kinds of time here now. And who is our Churchill? I feel the question has been answered. Kamala Harris has emerged. And to me, she is our contemporary Churchill figure. She is the one who is unifying the resistance to the fascism that is emerging from the cult of Donald Trump. That's how I see it.
What do you say to those who tell Canadians that we are in no position to comment on American politics?
Yeah, I mean, way back when, I mean, the book, the seed of the book was born way back in 2016 during the election when I got talking to a wealthy American woman at a private event, and I said, well, I'm a bit concerned about what's happening politically, the emergence of this Donald Trump, and she kind of said, well, that's not your concern. There's one president now, there's going to be another president, you're a Canadian, you don't get to vote. So being a Canadian, I very politely let the matter drop, but I'm not letting the matter drop anymore because the United States is the most powerful country in the world, and it is right next door to us. I mean, I'm not the first to remark that. I mean, the elephant and the mouse, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, there we are. If the elephant twitches, it's going to roll over on the mouse. So it has a tremendous impact on the entire world, but especially on Canada, which is right next door. So I'm not going to stand here, oh yeah. I mean, I've since seen some Canadians and some Americans say, you Canadians, you should just keep your mouth shut. That is not going to happen as long as I am able to get hold of the odd microphone.
It seems like we say this every 4 years, but this seems to be the most important and consequential U.S. presidential election of our lifetime.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I don't think we've ever seen an election to, on par with this one, where the stakes are so high because, Trump and the people around him, the smart people around him, have the Supreme Court. They've stacked the Supreme Court. They've got 2025, that great long hundreds of pages program to install people in key places, to take, they aren't going to be like last time where they were muddling through, weren't sure what they were doing. The people around Trump know what they're doing. And but it's going to be consequential though, no matter what. Okay, if Trump wins, it's because he's going to start, it'll be consequential because he's going to start implementing that horrendous agenda. If Trump loses, okay, is he going to say, Kamala, shake hands, you fought a good fight. That's well done. And he's going to write the letter that they leave, except for him, in the White House to the next president. Oh, things are good. Okay, so long, everybody. I'm on my way. Let the Democrats carry the can for a while. Does that sound like Trump? I don't think so. So there's going to be, I mean, look, with less at stake, he managed to inspire an attack on the Capitol. And if you look how Hitler behaved towards the end, burn Paris to the ground, no surrender. It's that is who Trump is, and he's got people around him for their own sakes. They're pursuing their own interests. They want to maintain power. They want to be in those positions. They want the country to go their way. So those are not people that are going to say, well, that was we fought a good fight, and we're out of here now. So carry on. That's not going to happen either. So either way the election goes, I don't see sunny ways ahead.
Now, what do you hope people take away from the book?
I'd like people to wake up and start watching and start thinking about ways we're going to resist if Trump gets elected, and how we're going to deal with what Stephen Marche, for example, has predicted will be a next civil war. That's going to overflow onto our borders. There's no question about that. So yeah, all I can do is sound the alarm and say, folks, we we have a problem here, and I think we should wake up and figure out how we're going to respond one way or the other.
History doesn't repeat, but it certainly does rhyme, as you've shown here.
Thanks, John. I appreciate that.
Shadows of Tyranny, Defending Democracy in an Age of Dictatorship is published by Douglas and McIntyre. My thanks to author Ken McGoogan.
Thank you for such a terrific interview, John. Really appreciate it.